The roast turkey sat completely untouched in the middle of the table, and the house was so dead quiet, I could hear the constant hum of the refrigerator. It was 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. My son, Colin, and my daughter-in-law, Harper, had sworn they'd be here by 8 sharp. No call, no text saying they were running late. I poured myself a small glass of red wine, sank into the couch, and mindlessly opened Facebook on my phone. And there was my answer, posted barely an hour ago. A picture of Harper's entire family, grinning ear to ear around a massive spread of food. Colin was holding a drink, and Harper was front and center in a sparkly dress. The caption underneath read, "The perfect Christmas Eve with my real family." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't feel like crying, and I didn't feel like breaking anything. At 68 years old, I've learned that tears don't change the facts. And the cold, hard fact was that I had been ditched on Christmas Eve, with zero warning, in a house I decorated specifically for my grandkids. Moving calmly, I got up and started clearing the dining room table. I boxed up the untouched sides in Tupperware, wrapped the turkey in foil, and shoved it all in the fridge. I wiped down the counters until they shined and unplugged the Christmas tree. I wasn't about to let a pity party ruin my night. As I dried my hands on a dish towel, my eyes landed on a blue folder sitting on the entryway console. Inside were the printed booking confirmations for our upcoming family vacation. $24,700. A trip Harper had meticulously planned, fully expecting me to foot the bill without a single question. I walked over, picked up the folder, grabbed my iPad, and sat back down in my armchair. The glow of the screen lit up my face. I had a major decision to make before the night was over. The trip was booked for the morning of December 27th. We were supposed to fly out to a luxury resort in Turks and Caicos. When Harper pitched the idea 6 months ago, she sold it to me as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to spend quality time with my grandchildren. But as the planning dragged on, the guest list mysteriously kept growing. Harper conveniently tacked on her own parents and her younger sister. It's just so much more fun with a big group. "Marion," she had told me, flashing that calculated smile of hers that never quite reached her eyes. And since Colin always just sat there, nodding along to whatever his wife dictated, I ended up footing the entire bill. $24,700, pulled straight from the nest egg my late husband and I had built over decades of hard work. I swiped through my iPad, pulling up the emails from the travel agency. Over the last few months, I'd watched Harper completely take over our family dynamic. She'd pick the most wildly expensive restaurants whenever it was my treat. She unilaterally decided when I was allowed to see the kids. And she basically treated me like a personal assistant with a bottomless checkbook. Tonight's deliberate no-show was just the cherry on top. It was the ultimate proof that to them, I wasn't family. I was an ATM. I opened the PDF with the booking's terms and conditions. I've always been a stickler for reading the fine print, a habit that saved my bacon more times than I can count. My eyes scanned the dense blocks of text until I found the cancellation policy. It was crystal clear, because Harper had insisted we get the premium package. There was a penalty-free cancellation window. I pushed my reading glasses up the bridge of my nose and read the sentence twice to make absolutely sure. Full refund guaranteed to the original payment method if the reservation is canceled by 11:59 p.m. on December 25th. I had exactly 1 day and 1 hour before the clock ran out. I closed my iPad, set it on the coffee table, and went to bed. Tomorrow was a new day. Christmas morning was freezing but bright. I made my usual breakfast sourdough toast with a drizzle of olive oil and a strong cup of black coffee. I turned on the little kitchen radio to play some acoustic music while I ate. My phone didn't make a peep until well past 11 a.m., when the screen finally lit up. It wasn't a call begging for forgiveness. It was a flimsy little text from Harper. "Merry Christmas. It got super late with my parents last night and the kids were exhausted. See you before the trip so we can sort out the luggage." Not a single word of apology. No honest explanation for why they couldn't even bother to give me a heads up. Just a throwaway excuse sent out of pure obligation, making sure the gravy train was still on track for her free vacation. I didn't reply. I finished my coffee in total peace, washed my mug, and set it on the drying rack. Then, I walked into my bedroom, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. I logged into the travel agency's portal, typing in my confirmation number and personal email. The itinerary popped up in seconds: 10 first-class plane tickets, 5 ocean view suites, and private airport transfers. All of it in my name. All of it charged to my card. Without a second thought, I moved my mouse straight down to the red button in the bottom right corner, "Cancel entire reservation." A pop-up warned me that this action was irreversible and asked if I was absolutely sure. I didn't hesitate for a fraction of a second. I wasn't acting out of blind, raging fury. I just had absolute, ice-cold clarity. I clicked confirm. A loading bar spun for a moment before a green message flashed across the screen. "Your reservation has been successfully canceled. A refund of $24,700 will be processed to your original payment method within 3 to 5 business days." I printed the cancellation receipt and tucked it neatly into my blue folder. The funny thing Harper seemed to have forgotten was that she had insisted on listing her own email as the secondary contact for updates. Somewhere out there, an automated server had just sent her a very important notification. At 6:30 a.m. on December 26th, the frantic, non-stop buzzing of my phone shattered the quiet of my bedroom. I slowly opened my eyes, letting them adjust to the dark. I sat up, clicked on my bedside lamp, and picked up the phone. The screen was glaring with a massive wall of red notifications. 103 missed calls, all of them from Harper and Colin. The text messages were piling up by the dozen, forming a solid block of panic on my lock screen. I slipped on my house slippers, padded into the kitchen, and started filling the coffee maker with filtered water. I was in absolutely no rush to pick up. I knew exactly where they were and exactly what was going down. The international flight to Turks and Caicos was scheduled for 9 a.m. Right about now, Harper, Colin, the kids, and her entire extended family were standing in front of the airline's check-in counter, pushing carts full of expensive luggage, completely ready to kick off their all-expenses-paid getaway. The phone buzzed again on the counter. This time, it was Colin. I waited until the coffee started its rhythmic dripping into the glass pot before I finally swiped to answer and pressed the phone to my ear. "Hello," I answered, my voice completely flat. "Mom, thank God you finally picked up," Colin yelled. His voice was shaking, thick with panic, and I could hear the unmistakable chaos of a busy airport terminal in the background. "There's a massive issue with the airline. They're saying we aren't in the system. Our tickets are invalid and the hotel rooms were released yesterday. Harper is losing her mind screaming at a supervisor. But they're claiming the whole reservation was voided." Before I could even get a word in, I heard a scuffle on the other end, like the phone was being ripped right out of my son's hand. "Marion!" Harper shrieked, totally dropping her polished act. "The agency is saying you canceled the whole trip. Call them right now and tell them it's a glitch in their system. My entire family is standing here in line." I took a clean dish towel and casually wiped up a drop of water next to the sink. I poured my hot coffee into my favorite mug, watching the steam rise in the dim dawn light of my kitchen. It's not a glitch. Harper, the agency is right. I canceled the reservation yesterday morning, I replied, keeping my voice low, slow, and totally controlled. Dead silence on the other end. And then, an absolute explosion. You did what? My daughter-in-law screamed. The airport background noise practically vanished behind her blind rage. I have my parents standing right here. Our bags are packed. It's peak season. We can't just buy new tickets right now. Have you completely lost your mind? Do not raise your voice at me. I snapped back, sharp and firm. I dropped nearly 25 grand on a vacation to enjoy with my family. A family that didn't even have the common decency to call me on Christmas Eve to tell me I'd be eating dinner alone. I spend my money on people who respect me and value my time. Since that's clearly not the case here, I decided to get my savings back. You spiteful, selfish, Harper gasped, literally huffing for breath. You did this just to be vindictive. If you do this, I swear to God, you are never seeing your grandchildren again. I will cut you off completely. That was her go-to playbook, weaponizing the kids to keep a stranglehold on the family and my finances. Years ago, I would have caved instantly, terrified of being shut out of my grandkids' lives. But this time, her emotional blackmail hit a brick wall. The fear was just gone. If that's your final decision as a mother, I'll respect it, I said simply, refusing to take the bait. Have a safe drive back home. I hung up before she could get another sound out. I turned the phone completely off, set it on the table, and sat down to enjoy my breakfast in peace. I did some quick mental math. It takes about 40 minutes to get from the airport terminal to my neighborhood. I had less than an hour before their problem showed up on my front porch. My math was spot on. 45 minutes later, I heard the screech of tires pulling hard into my driveway. I was watering the ferns in the living room when I looked out the front window and saw Colin's SUV parked horribly, half on my grass. The doors flew open, and Harper stomped out, her face beet red with bottled-up rage. Colin trailed closely behind her, looking exhausted, overwhelmed, and incredibly uncomfortable. I didn't wait for them to pound on the door or ring the bell. I set the watering can down, grabbed my keys from the entryway bowl, and stepped out onto the porch. I pulled the front door shut behind me, making sure I heard the deadbolt click. I was not about to let Harper cross my threshold and turn the inside of my house into a screaming match. My house. My rules. Open the door, Harper demanded as she reached the bottom step, pointing an accusing finger right at my face. We are going inside, and you are going to call that travel agency right now and fix this mess. My parents had to take 3 separate Ubers home. You completely humiliated us in front of everybody. I crossed my arms and planted my feet firmly on the top step. Nobody's going inside. Harper, we're having this conversation right here, and it's going to be brief. And put your finger down. Need I remind you, you're standing on my property. Colin stepped forward, trying to play his usual, useless role of peacemaker. Mom, please. This has gotten way out of hand. I know your feelings were hurt about Christmas Eve, but Harper is right. Canceling everyone's trip was a massive overreaction. Just open the door, sit down with us, and put it back on your card. I swear we'll spend New Year's with you to make up for it. I stared hard at my son. His chronic passivity had always been his worst trait. He actually still believed that a hollow promise and a soft tone of voice meant he could keep treating my bank account like his own personal slush fund. There's no mistake to fix, I said, with total calm. The money is going back into my checking account, and that's exactly where it's staying. I am not funding a vacation where my only purpose is to be the wallet. Furious that I wasn't budging, Harper took a step up the stone stairs, trying to push past me. "Don't you even think about taking another step," I warned. I didn't yell, but my voice was so heavy and sharp that Harper literally froze with her foot in the air. She instinctively backed down, completely thrown off by the absolute authority in my eyes. "You are ruining your own family over a petty tantrum." Harper sneered, teeth clenched and fists balled at her sides. "If you refuse to rebook it, then give us the cash. Wire me the 24 grand right now. We'll figure out how to book new flights and a hotel ourselves. It is the bare minimum you owe us for the emotional distress you just caused." I actually let out a short, dry laugh. The sheer audacity of her demand just confirmed everything I had been thinking for the last 2 days. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. The only thing they genuinely cared about was getting their hands on my money. "Oh, you?" I asked, shaking my head slowly. "You two live in a house where I paid the entire down payment. You drive a family SUV that I helped finance. And I religiously pay my grandkids' private school tuition every single month. I owe you absolutely nothing." "Harper, you've confused my generosity with a permanent obligation." Colin jumped in again, running his hands through his hair in desperation. "Mom, please, I am begging you. Harper is stressed out. The kids are crying in the car. Just wire the money to my account and we'll handle the rest. Don't make this worse." "Colin, you are 42 years old," I reminded him, looking him dead in the eye without an ounce of pity. "It's high time you figure out how to fund the lifestyle your wife demands. I am no longer your corporate sponsor. Now turn around, get back in your car, and get off my lawn." Harper crossed her arms, striking a defiant pose. "Fine. If that's how you want to play it, we'll fix it ourselves. Colin, pull out the emergency credit card your mother gave us. We'll just charge the new flights to that, and she can deal with the statement next month." I stayed planted on the top of the porch, watching without batting an eye as Colin frantically dug through his wallet for that silver credit card. I'd given them that authorized user card years ago with one strict, spoken rule. It was only for legitimate medical emergencies or major household disasters. Over the last few months, I'd noticed a bunch of little charges popping up from trendy restaurants and boutiques, but I had let it slide to keep the peace. Those days were officially over. "Don't even bother looking for it." "Colin," I said, my tone completely matter of fact. He stopped dead in his tracks. "What do you mean?" "I called the bank yesterday afternoon," I explained. "That extra card was tied to my main account. I reported it, and it's been permanently canceled. If you try to swipe it anywhere, it's going to decline." All the color instantly drained from Harper's face. The absolute certainty that she had a bottomless safety net under her feet just vanished into thin air. "You made your choices on Christmas Eve," I told them flatly. "The bank is closed. Go home," without waiting for them to say another word. I turned on my heel. I stepped inside and pulled the heavy wooden door shut, locking the deadbolt with a loud, final click. Peeking through the living room blinds, I watched Colin and Harper get into a screaming match next to the car before finally peeling out of my driveway. The next few days passed with a level of peace I hadn't felt in years. My house was perfectly clean, my finances were locked down, and for the first time, I wasn't carrying the suffocating weight of my daughter-in-law's expectations. On the afternoon of December 30th, the doorbell rang. It was Colin. He was totally alone, wearing wrinkled sweats and looking completely defeated. I opened the door and let him step into the living room. "Hey, Mom," he mumbled, keeping his voice low. "Harper is barely talking to me. We had to max out our own credit cards just to pay for the airport Ubers and all the other cancellation fees." I came over to apologize face to face for Christmas Eve. I sat down across from him. The apology sounded a lot more like a guy stressed about being broke than a guy who was actually sorry about ditching his mother. I accept your apology, Colin, but the rules in this family have permanently changed. I am done being your personal slush fund. Colin let out a heavy sigh and rubbed his face. I know. It's just, Harper wants to host a massive New Year's Eve dinner to smooth things over with her parents, and our accounts are literally in the red. I just needed to ask if you could float me a small loan. Just this once. I stared right at him. After everything that had just happened, my son was still looking for the easiest way out. He hadn't grasped that my decision wasn't a temporary punishment. It was permanent. No, I said, with absolute, unwavering clarity. I'm not loaning you a dime. Colin, you both have steady jobs. It is time for you to sit down and make a real budget. If you don't have the cash to throw a fancy dinner for your in-laws, you'll have to cook something cheap or cancel it. Welcome to being a financially independent adult. He opened his mouth to argue, but the look on my face stopped him dead. He slowly nodded, finally accepting defeat. He stood up, gave me a stiff hug, and shuffled out the front door. On New Year's Eve, I didn't eat alone. I happily accepted an invitation from my neighbor, Patty, to come over to her place. We had a simple, home-cooked meal, split a great bottle of red wine, and laughed until our ribs hurt. The next morning, I opened my banking app. The full $24,700 refund had officially hit my account overnight. I smiled at the bright green number on the screen. I had taken my life back with practical actions and a firmly closed door. I locked my iPad, poured my morning coffee, and sat by the window to watch the sun rise on a brand new year.